Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist, that's a CBT therapist, and a licensed mental health counselor. This is the case of the Idaho Moscow quadruple murders. This is for entertainment purpose only, strictly entertainment purpose.
Could this be the killer's handprint? The ghostly image appeared when this window was dusted for prints.
There's no doubt that it's an important item of evidence. There has to be a point of entry and a point of exit in a crime like this. If there is a handprint, it may be very significant.
I can show you.
And we're learning that 21-year-old Kaylee Gonsalves may have been the killer's prime target. Published reports say that Kaylee was subjected to a more brutal attack than the other three victims. She was killed on the same bed along with her best friend, Madison Mogen. News Nation reporter Brian Enton is in Idaho covering the investigation.
There's a number of different theories possible. Since her wounds were more significant than Maddie's, is it possible she was the target? Yes. Or is it possible that she woke up and was trying to fight back and that Maddie was the target?
As the investigation enters its fourth week, Kaylee's father is expressing disappointment with the local police.
Do you feel confident in the police investigation and the people investigating right now?
I do not feel confident, and that's why I push the envelope and say a little bit more. I hate to be that guy, but there's a job to do for everybody. Has a job and a role to play in this. This is my role as the parent.
He says he's raising money to hire a private detective. The two surviving roommates who slept through the attack are breaking their silence. Poignant letters from Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were read aloud by a pastor at a memorial service in an Idaho church. Dylan wrote,
"I know it will be hard to not have the four of them in our lives, but I know Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee would want us to live life and be happy."
We're at that point in the investigation where we're still gathering information. We're still gathering tips. We're still gathering evidence. We're still doing everything we need to do.
It's the latest in the University of Idaho murder.
I'm so lucky that I can tell people about my best friend, Maddie. And she's going to be a busy girl up in heaven because she is now the guardian angel to some wild ones who really need her down here.
We continue to follow the University of Idaho quadruple murder case. I'm talking about the killings of 21-year-old Kaylee Gonsalves, 21-year-old Madison Mogen, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. Their bodies found in their off-campus home out in the college town of Moscow. These killings happened 3 weeks ago, and at the time of this recording, no arrests have been made, no suspect identified, and no murder weapon recovered. And joining me to talk about the latest in this investigation is my sidebar co-host, Anjanette Levy, who is on the ground in Moscow, Idaho. Anjanette, it's good to see you. I know it's freezing over there. Before we get into this idea of the car, a very important aspect of this car that police mentioned, can you tell us where you are right now, what the scene is?
You know, Jesse, good to be with you. We are about a block away from the house on King Road where these homicides occurred a little more than 3 weeks ago. And where I'm standing right now is in front of the Sigma Chi house. The Sigma Chi house is important in this investigation because Ethan Chapin, one of the victims, and his girlfriend, Xana Kernodle, were at a party here at the Sigma Chi house around 9 p.m. on November 12th. That was that Saturday night, hours before these homicides occurred. They then made their way, it's our understanding, made their way from the Sigma Chi house over to the house on King Road, arrived there around 1:45 a.m. There had been some questions. Police had put out a call for information earlier this week about where Ethan and Xana were between the hours of 9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m. Were they here the whole time at the Sigma Chi house? I asked that question of the PIO yesterday. I didn't get an answer. He said they had received more information about their whereabouts, but he wouldn't tell me where they were. There's since been some other reporting that they've determined that Ethan and Xana were here at the Sigma Chi house all night. We're trying to confirm that, and then made their way over about a block away to the home where they ended up being murdered. Ethan, of course, was a member of the fraternity here, and Xana was somebody who was known to the people in the fraternity as well.
And by the way, I encourage everybody to follow Anjanette on Twitter for live updates about what's happening. The reason I say that is because I was following you, Anjanette, and you spoke to the Sigma Chi president, right?
I did. We met him actually on Tuesday, Reed Offsoon, and he was leaving for class. And we were standing outside trying to talk to members of the fraternity, and we were told they had put out a statement. Reed was very nice, said they didn't want to really say anything, that they had told the FBI, Idaho State Police, and Moscow Police everything they knew. They had given them all the information they had, and that they were cooperating with the investigation. And so he didn't say much more than that, other than he was friends with Ethan and Xana, considered them friends. Ethan, of course, a member here, lived at the Sigma Chi house. And then happened to run into him again yesterday when that information about the car came out from Idaho State Police and Moscow Police.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about. So this is I would say probably the biggest update we've had so far, given this week maybe, and maybe in the last week and a half. The police are looking for a car, right? What do we know?
Well, this came out late Wednesday. They put out an update after they cleared the belongings of the 3 victims out of their home. The police put out an update on Facebook, and really this is the most specific call for information that we've really received, other than them asking for information about Ethan and Xana's whereabouts on Saturday, November 12th. They released some stock photos of a Hyundai Elantra between the years, they believe, of 2011 and 2013. They don't have a license plate number for the vehicle, but they are asking people to, if they have that vehicle, if they own that vehicle, if they know somebody with that vehicle, to call in, because the police say that this vehicle was in the immediate area of the King Road home the morning of the homicides. This happened in the overnight hours on Sunday, November 13th. And they believe that the person or persons, they said occupant or occupants of the vehicle, could have information critical to the case. So it kind of, gets your mind going, your imagination going. You're like, oh, is this involved? Is this vehicle involved? Did somebody get out of this vehicle and walk to the home? We don't know. Or were they just in the area and may have seen somebody? The police haven't told us why exactly they are interested in this vehicle, other than they believe the people in the vehicle may have information critical to the case. So critical sounds very important. So we would like to get more information about that and see where that goes. But they could somehow search DMV records for both Idaho and Washington, see if any of those vehicles are around. We are rather close to the Washington state line here.
Car were witnesses.
Close to the Washington state line here.
But doesn't it seem like they're saying the people in that car were witnesses to what happened and not suspects, right? That just to clarify, because if they were suspects, if the police believe that who was in that car might have been connected to the killings, I don't know if they would have released this statement, right? It seems to me that whoever was in that car might have witnessed someone coming in and out of the house. It's pure speculation. Is that what you're getting at now? Is that what you think, Anjanette, based on the commentary?
That's certainly a potential, Jesse, but also I would think that if they think the vehicle is involved, they're certainly not going to want to spook those people, right? It's kind of like, I feel like there's a lot that goes into verbiage that's used, into the words that are used. It brings to mind to me, we always hear the word suspect. When do they ever use that word anymore? We hear person of interest. To me, that always means like junior suspect, it's like a euphemism for suspect. So I don't know. It could be that they believe these people witnessed something or saw something. Maybe this car, we don't know. I've looked all over for surveillance cameras. I don't see any. It doesn't sound like a lot of people around here have security cameras, but was this vehicle seen on security footage? We don't know. But there couldn't have been that much traffic, vehicular traffic at that hour of the morning. I've been talking to neighbors who told me there's a lot of foot traffic because on the weekends especially, people are partying out here in this neighborhood, and yelling and screaming is not unusual because there are people partying all weekend and even on the weeknights. So we just don't know. We're waiting to figure it all out.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so curious. Why is it coming out now? We know that authorities, they've received over 2,600 emailed tips, over 2,700 phone tips, over 1,000 digital media submissions. We're not sure what led them to this car, but maybe we'll get some answers to the car because it sounds like they're saying very, very important. Now, And Jeanette, I know it's cold. I don't want to...
A big break in the case. A grainy image of a speeding car that could be the white Hyundai Elantra police are looking for. A night manager at this gas station in Moscow, Idaho, discovered surveillance video that showed a white sedan driving by on the night the 4 University of Idaho students were murdered. The timestamp says 3:45 a.m., right in the time frame in which police say the killings took place. The video has been handed over to police. It shows the car traveling on this road outside the gas station. It's just 1.2 miles from the house where the students were murdered.
It was out at 3:45 a.m. speeding. And this is significant, Harris, very significant. In a town of less than 50,000 people, less than 30,000 people, the driver has not come forward. Why?
Inside Edition spoke with News Nation's Brian Enton in Idaho.
The exact direction we don't know. We know that it was on Highway 8, right in front of the gas station, and turned onto a side road. It appeared the car was headed out of town, and reportedly the assistant manager at the gas station said it was going quite fast.
The night manager says she was acting on a hunch and went through hours of surveillance video from that night. Turns out her hunch was right. Now questions are being raised about why a month after the murders, that gas station video and others from businesses along Route 8 had not been already examined by police. There are several other businesses nearby that may have captured the car on security cameras. Shannon Gray, attorney for the family of murder victim Kaylee Goncalves, is critical of the police.
Do I think they might be overwhelmed? Maybe. Part of the investigation, you would think from the get-go, would be looking at all video evidence.
Okay, it's because they didn't respond. It was in the morning.
Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. Today I'd like to discuss about the Idaho quadruple murders that took place on the 12th to the 13th of November 2022. To start with, condolence to the families of Ethan Chippen, Xana Conodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Jane Goncalves. May they rest in peace, and may justice, the correct justice, be served to all the 4 victims and their families. Brian Kohlberger has waived his rights to a speedy trial. I don't understand many people are upset about it because they want the trial to go on so that justice is served for the 4 victims. But what we need to understand is justice means proper justice. It means correct justice. Otherwise, there's no point having a justice system. No one is guilty until proven guilty by the courts of law. And I think that it's really unfair for Ann Taylor to go into a speedy trial with her not having the correct evidence that the FBI and the prosecution did to get to this roadmap of accusing Brian Christopher Kohlberger for this horrific crimes. What's her name? Ann Taylor has asked for the evidence to be submitted. She's been asking for that for the last couple of months. We do understand that prosecutors and defense attorneys do play a lot of kind of games, you can say, by not submitting in the evidence and such things. So obviously it's going to take longer. But you can imagine if you're being given example, an exam, or assignment that you have to submit in a certain time. Now imagine that you aren't given the textbook and the work to study for the exam. Then you're obviously going to fail in the exam. And that wouldn't be right. So then what do? You obviously complain to the education board. And you say, I haven't been given, or the whole classroom will be complaining, saying that we haven't been given the right work. So this is not a guessing game. It's important that the prosecution hands over what they have. Especially, I believe it's really, this is my personal opinion, I believe it's really unfair when there is 3 unidentified male victims. 2 was found in the crime scene and 1 was found outside the crime scene. You heard Inside Edition talking about it. It's on Fox News too. It's on New York Post. So this isn't fake news. We can't just say that, the FBI can't just say that we have linked and connected Mr. Brian Christopher Kohlberger to these horrific crimes, that he did it by himself, but we are not going to hand over the roadmap of how we got the DNA. Genealogical DNA is not used in most of the courts. The way I read it and I researched it, it isn't supposed to be used in the courts of Idaho. But I'm sure they can argue about it, and that is exactly what's happening now. Brian is entitled to a speedy trial, and he's entitled to waiving his right for a speedy trial. I'm sure, this is my speculation only, I'm sure that when Brian Kohlberger said at the start that he was eager to be exonerated and he wanted a speedy trial, it's because he thought that the prosecution is going to be fair and hand over all the evidence, like the 3 male unidentified evidence, and like the genealogical DNA. So imagine if you were Brian Kohlberger, what would you have done? God forbid, none of us are Brian Kohlberger, luckily, and we are not put in this situation. And hopefully we would never be put in a situation like that. But think to yourself, Brian Kohlberger is entitled by law, by the courts of law, actually, for them to prove the genealogical DNA, because it's a new form of evidence that has been tried on in the courts for the last 9 to 10 years. It is usually used for cold cases. It's just been used in some cases, but that's not often. Because most of the cases, let's be honest, have DNA to submit. Let's start with the first time the news broke out. On the 13th of December, around 11:58 noon. The first question is, why did it take 8 hours for the roommates to call law enforcement? I just played for y'all the last clip from ABC News, clearly saying that Kaylee Jane Congalvis, his friend, you heard her talking, saying that she heard the news at 10 a.m. She called Kaylee's phone. Nobody answered. May Kaylee rest in peace. We have the roommates allegedly texting each other after the horrific crimes. And we have Hunter Johnson, Ethan's brother Hunter, and multiple people, like the 911 caller said. They're called at 11:58. So now you have multiple people coming to a quadruple murders crime scene. Obviously, they're not wearing gloves. They're not wearing the foot protection. They're not wearing anything to look after the crime scene. It could be two things: either the stress, the anxiety of hearing what happened, that they didn't think right, because nobody's going to think right seeing such a horrific scene. But obviously we all have been taught from when we were a kid, and we've taught our children, call 911. These people did not hesitate to call 911. They did it on purpose, allegedly. Because we're talking about multiple people. Someone along the line would have said, stop, let's not touch anything. We need to call law enforcement. Let's not forget, these are students that are studying bachelor's, master's, and some are doing it in criminology. Some are doing it in psychology. I personally believe that's a lie. We don't know when they came to the crime scene. Let's be clear. The reason I say that is the crime happened, allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly for when the crime happened, because I do not believe. I honestly do not believe the timeline of Moscow Police Department, because they couldn't even find the right car, allegedly. Or they gave us the description of a wrong car. They told everyone to start searching for a Honda Elantra from 2011 to 2013 model. And they were searching for occupants or an occupant in a white vehicle. Now, when you hear occupants, that's obviously more than one. They weren't even sure which car they were searching for, number one. The make and the model, they got the years wrong of the Elantra. There's many fishy Elantras roaming around. We've seen one parked in Jack D near his house. We've heard that Brent Kopacker has a silver Honda Elantra parked near his family's house. May he rest in peace. I know many people get upset when I bring up Brent Kopacker, but this is about getting justice for the victims. So we have to check every box before we tick it. So the information of the car was wrong. Occupant of the car was going on for the first couple of weeks. And now pay attention. That car was seen speeding away from the scene, going the other side. It wasn't going towards the house of Kings Road. It looked more like it was going the other direction, speeding off for whatever reason. That car, its timeline was 3:45 at night. Now, didn't the crime scenes happen somewhere between 4 to 5, 5 past 4 to 20 past? So that car doesn't actually fit the timeline, if you ask me. But I could be wrong. You have 3 unidentified male DNA. That is serious. I like how some people say that Brian could have been one of the 3 unidentified DNAs. Absolutely not. Because you just have to understand that Ann Taylor wouldn't be arguing in the courts with the prosecution to turn over the 3 unidentified male DNAs if one of them belonged, or if all 3 of them belonged to Brian Koberger. That's common sense. She's interested in those 3 male unidentified DNAs because they do not belong to her client. And that is important. Those 3 unidentified DNAs should have been turned in. Just like proper DNA should have been turned in, and the roadmap of how they got the genealogical DNA. But I personally believe they're not going to turn this in, and it's going to be a fight and argument. It's going to be an argument circulating for the next couple of years or couple of months. I hate to say that. Because I do understand Ann Taylor. Whether it was BK or whether she was representing another client, I would have said the same. Everybody's entitled to a fair trial. So you have to give the roadmap of how you came to the conclusion that this is DNA, that this is genealogical DNA is from Brian Koberger. Yes, we have the leather knife sheet. I know they took stuff from his house. I know they've taken other stuff, but they're still not showing the homework. When do people usually have a hard time turning in the evidence? When they haven't done the work correctly. I'll give you an example. If I have a client I'm dealing with for, just say, 8 weeks to 2 months, 8 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, I'm supposed to tick in all the boxes after every therapy assessment. I have to write in what I observed, what could have been, or what needs to be looked at more, if there's any new updates, any new behavior changes, any new cognitive changes with my client. It all has to be written. So after 3 months, when I'm done with all the assessments and the psychiatrist, I turn it over to the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist has done their evaluation. Before the psychiatrist does it, he checks. My supervisor will check, and then the psychiatrist will check to see, okay, how did Huda come to this conclusion that, just say example, that the client wasn't taking the medications, and that's why she believes that they were suffering of a psychosis episode. Or maybe that the client had witnessed something really terrific, just say a shooting incident and all, and then I saw symptoms of that this has traumatized the person, and I write down all that, and I just say I believe that it needs to be checked more towards the PTSD and anxiety side. Of course, I have to show my roadmap how I came to that. Others, it's not good for my client. They won't be getting a fair therapy, or they could end up getting a wrong diagnosis from the psychiatrist. So everything has to have a roadmap. We can't just sit here. I can't just sit here and say, I did the assessments, but guess what? I'm not going to turn it in. That's not right. This is a man's life that is on stake. They want to give him the death penalty. This is a death penalty case. We hear they want to do the fire squad. How could they even file for the death penalty or say that they want this to be, that they're going to file for the death penalty when they haven't done the homework right? This could happen to anyone, so this is serious. Now coming back to the vehicle, we have heard over thousands of times before they caught Brian Christopher Kohlberger that the occupants or the occupant who owns or who was inside the vehicle. I've heard that word occupant so many times. Even the police said that themselves, Moscow police, in the press conference. Not during the press conference, the press conference with the media, the small press conference. They said we are searching for the occupants or the occupant of the vehicle. They could be witness. They never said that they're suspects or anything, but obviously they're not going to do that because they're not supposed to give out too much information because the person can run or do whatever. But they said occupants or occupants is actually a bit too much information too. Because of the occupants, they would know exactly what the police are searching for. And they could destroy that car, get rid of the car, move away from town, which could have possibly happened if it wasn't Brian Kohlberger. Brian Kohlberger, his alibi, as far as we know, is he was driving and he doesn't sleep at night. Many people could say, I've seen many people laughing about that, even I found it kind of a bit amusing at the start. But then, later on, I thought to myself, took time and I thought, you know what? It is possible. Many people who cannot sleep at night do usually like to drive or take a walk, take a jog, cycle. There's no crime in driving at night. But then I found it amusing because how come his knife sheath was found there? But then I've thought of that too. And this is speculation. I have to say it when I'm speculating. And this could be a far stretch, so bear in mind. What if, do you all remember that Brian Kohlberger made the research in 2020, asking for participants in his horrific research, saying, how did you feel before you committed a crime? How did you feel after? How did you leave the crime scene? Those nonsense questions. So just say, if his mindset was already there, he could have found people who wanted to take revenge or do whatever, allegedly, and say, okay, I'll help you all, I'll make a plan for you all, and you all can borrow my knife. It's just a thought I came to think about recently. And he maybe have given them his knife, but whoever did the horrific crime left the night sheet by mistake in the crime scene, or left it on purpose to frame him, or to get him and not them. That is possible. That's the only way I can see a knife sheet coming in there. And the reason that I thought of it in this way is because his phone pinged around the areas, but he did not get off his car. We did not see him going all out of the car, getting into the sliding door or whatever door and coming out from whichever entrance. We haven't seen that. And if the police had that, they would have turned it in, wouldn't they? If the prosecution had, I'm sure they have that, but if the prosecution wanted this to be a speedy trial, they would have handed everything over. So now they're telling a young man we're going to take away, you have your rights to defend yourself, but we are not going to turn over the three unidentified male DNAs. Especially, words are really important. Words are really important to not only understand, but to really, really observe what is being said. They are actually saying that we have three unidentified DNAs because Inside Edition, Fox News, New York Post couldn't have just got those things out of thin air. They couldn't have made that up. That's illegal. So this was what they were told by the police. So if they have the three male unidentified DNAs, why don't they just turn it in? They're not turning it in because they know that will acquit Brian Kohlberg. The charges will have to be dropped. Or more people of interest will be involved. I've heard people saying they had a big party there, so it could be someone from the party. No. Let me explain to you something. One of the unidentified male DNAs was found behind the Good Vibes picture. So I would assume that maybe in the fight struggle, the killer or the killers held, maybe the frame was falling down or something and they held it without a glove. That's one way I could think of. People can think about it and leave your comments. It'll be interesting. I learned so much from y'all too. And it's important in a case like this to think out of the box. It's really important. I ain't a lawyer. Law isn't my subject. I really respect lawyers, but I've never thought of law and criminology and all is not my subject. But mental health, psychology, such things is what always interested me because I believe the world has too many lawyers. The world doesn't have enough people in mental health. And yeah, we can see clearly how much suffering is going on, how much killing is going on. Trigger warning. Because due to different reasons, but especially due to people who have mental health illness. So when they are not attending counseling, therapy and all, if they're not seen by a psychiatrist and by the mental health team, it becomes difficult for them. And then we wonder, as the public, what went wrong? Like, I'll give you an example. Beatrice Bijou, you can check it in my channel. Way down in my channel a couple of months ago, I was covering this case of Beatrice Bijou. She was a young lawyer, a real estate lawyer in Florida. And I'm sure you'll remember she ran with the SUV in a crowd of people. Everyone was judging her. Many people wrote it in my comment section. Why are you defending her? And you shouldn't be defending her. And she was doing this because she's a lawyer and she has experience. So she's trying to fool the law. Good example, it's like Brian Kohlberg. But the difference with Beatrice, I always told people, because of my mental health background, I could clearly see, and I believed her when she told the officers that she was put in a psychiatrist's ward 4 separate times. She was suffering of bipolar and schizophrenia. This was around the COVID, when COVID was just finished. She didn't see her doctor in the period of the whole COVID time. The last time she saw a doctor was in 2019, at the end of 2019. She stopped taking her medications straight after that. She didn't go to get any medications, and I assume it's because she had a good career and everything, and she thought kind of like she could manage, although she knew the danger of not taking her medications. Beatrice was going to get married to a fiancé, so she was trying to stop taking the medications because she wanted to get pregnant and she thought it will affect her pregnancy. It was proven later on that Beatrice was suffering from mental health illness. So even Texas, that are strict on the mental health laws, they took time. They took a couple of months. She was arrested for a couple of months. They checked everything, obviously with psychiatrists, with counselors coming to the stand and everyone. And they found out, thank God nobody died that she ran over. Nobody was seriously injured, so that was good. There was one blessing in disguise. But they understood that this woman shouldn't be held accountable. Because honestly, if you ask me, that is more an issue of, I wouldn't say the mental health team, even a GP, her family. Everyone has a duty to do something when you have a family member suffering of serious mental health illness, or if you have a family member suffering or showing symptoms of mental health illness. You could save a life by getting them help. Her family said they did not see it coming, but they, in a way, that's the part I had an issue with. She was put in psychiatrist wards before, so that's not an excuse. The family knew that she stopped taking her medication. So what I'm trying to say is not, even she got a fair trial, and everyone's entitled to a fair trial. So when we, the reason about the Beatrice Bijou case as an example is, it is so wrong that we start, speculation is wrong. But speculation is allowed as long as you say it's speculation, so that people don't get it mixed up and run around thinking it's a fact. But it's not right that when there's not enough facts, evidence, the prosecution isn't turning around turning out they're not basically submitting the evidence. You heard Prosecution Thompson, what he clearly said. Oh, we can't give out what we don't have. Now what you have, you're supposed to keep it safely, because you know a trial is going to begin, so that you can hand it over. Why wouldn't he turn it over? It's not that he doesn't have it. He knows it jeopardizes the case for him. Let's be honest. The homework was done incorrectly by Idaho Moscow police. Allegedly. The prosecution are seeking for the death penalty, but they're not ready for the trial either, because they're trying to hold on to the male DNAs, the male DNAs that were found behind the Vibes picture, the latent shoe print with the diamond shape in front of Dylan's room, very important, and the third is the glove that was found outside the scene. That can be questioned about. I've heard many people questioning that, but still, it is part of the evidence. Now all of a sudden the prosecution says, we can't give you anything that isn't turned in, and what we have got from the labs, we've turned it in. And all. No, you haven't. No, darling, you haven't. Just give BK, his lawyer, the 3 unidentified male evidence, because it proves that there's something into it. If these 3 unidentified male evidence was from people who were over at the party and such things, believe me, the prosecution would have given it. They would have said, here, here, and here. 100 people were in the party, and we checked this evidence, and we found out the 3 evidence came from Mike, John, and Paul. Example. But they ain't doing it because they know that the 3 unidentified emails was on the scene during the crime. That's how I take it. You can take it the way you want. But it's the truth. We have to use our common sense because the prosecution can try it, and Taylor can try it, but we have to use our common sense and see what fits in the puzzle and what doesn't. We can't force something in a puzzle that doesn't fit. It doesn't go that way. The prosecution is trying to actually bully this trial. I hate to say that. They're trying to shove it on BK, blame it on BK, which he could possibly have done it. Nobody said that BK is innocent. I've never said BK is innocent. In fact, I'm thinking that BK is involved. He could have been the master plan of all of it, but I don't think he was in the crime scene. Or maybe BK wasn't involved at all. Because prove it to me. If people are going to say, yeah, but the knife sheet links into, who knows who brought that knife exactly to the scene? Let's ask ourselves that. It could have been stolen from BK's house. It could have been stolen from his desk. It could have been stolen from anywhere. Somebody could have ordered it on his name. He could have... No, sorry, I take that back. Nobody could have ordered it, obviously, on his name. But think about other ways that the DNA could have landed there. Maybe BK has come into that house before for whatever purpose. We know that Emma Bailey was in the house. And we know that BK is a recovering heroin addict. Now that is one serious drug that is very addictive. So people can go back on heroin easily. They can relapse. I know that as a counselor. If his PhD got too much to him, he could have even gone there because Emma was there and he was going to get something else from her. We know that Emma, Bailey, and Demetrius the charges have been dropped of overdosing a person. We've seen Emma in that house. We've seen drugs being distributed or not distributed. We have been seeing all kind of dodgy behaviors happening at the grub truck. And it's up to everyone to believe what they believe. I clearly saw Number 9 putting in something in Maddie's mouth, and that wasn't a chewing gum. That wasn't a receipt. I've even heard a receipt. I'm not going to say anything wrong. I'm holding myself back. Why would somebody come and put up a paper in your mouth? Inside your mouth. Why would that happen? If people say it's as a joke, no. Number 9 went clearly behind, waved his hand, did whatever, got whatever, and he exchanged something. He pulled out his hand, he gave something, and then he took something. He gave money, he got the drugs. I'm not born yesterday. So I really don't care, honestly, what people say about the comment. Say in the comments, as long as they're not rude, we all can have the right to disagree. We can agree to disagree respectfully. I've seen so many dodgy characters around this case. And the one that I seem to be getting most heat for, which I find really interesting, and the more people tell me, or leave him alone and don't say his name, the more I'm going to investigate deep on that person. Right now, Jack D seems to be getting all fans and groupies telling me, oh, Jack D wasn't there. Why would you say this about his hand? Why would you say that about the best one I've heard? I have to share it with you all. A couple of months ago, the first time I put in the clip of Jack D with the swollen face. Somebody said, leave him alone. He was crying that he lost his former girlfriend. They said his girlfriend. Let's get that correct. Kaylee Jane Congalvis was his former girlfriend. That's very important to get clear here. They said that I think this was a classic. I had to laugh myself to sleep. It was one of those things that you think, I can't believe you actually said that. They said that, yeah, he had a swollen face because he was crying for his former girlfriend. So I said, if he had a swollen face, I answered in the comment, then why would he have band-aids on his fingers and his hand had a band-aid? The person said, oh yeah, because when he heard about what happened to Kaylee and the girls, he got so angry he punched a glass and then he got hurt. If he punched a glass and got hurt or a window, we would have known. We would have heard about it. But this happened to, when I noticed these things on his hands and fingers, it was when he came to pick up Murphy, his dog. And that was when the murders happened. So you can't get away with that. My red flags on Jack D is a list from 1 to 1,000, and I hope Ann Taylor has noticed those too. I don't get anything of accusing someone else of any crime. But what I find fishy, what I see with my 2 eyes, I ain't going to back off. I'm going to do it mindfully, but I'm not going to back off. At least if the person said, yeah, he could have got into a fight the night before, I would have understood. I would have thought, okay, yeah, he was in the corner club. Maybe he exchanged words with someone and they punch, he says. But they didn't punch, he says. You could see literally, he says to Sebastian. What about the hands? We've heard from experts and professionals that when you do such a horrific crime, trigger warning, the knife goes in and out and then it can scar, it can injure your hands. What a coincidence that his whole hand was bandaged. He kept on looking down at the floor. He was hiding from the cameras. That's a telltale sign. He was talking to his auntie and doing like this. He kept on. He had his hands in his pockets. What are we going to say about that? Many people were ruled out too soon. And another red flag I have of Jack Jack D, is very simple. Jack D, why were you ruled out the last? And it's not my words, but what CNN when they're asking the Congalvis family. It's only Jack D, his former sister-in-law Olivia, and the former mother-in-law Kaylee's mother who were defending him at the start. You saw the look the father gave when he was on the stage and when he turned around from his microphone and he saw him talking, Jack D holding the mother like that. If looks could kill, that was a look you'd never want to see anyone giving you that look. Jack D did not contact Kaylee and Maddie's mother to tell them what had happened. They found out later. Jack D came out with the stupid excuse he was sleeping. He came out with the same excuse that he was sleeping when the girls called him 10 times. How much sleep does he need? We saw him at the corner club. The timeline said 1:35. So where was this man? He said playing PlayStation. Strange. He had a white Honda parked in front of his house. Why? The white pickup that we see going towards the corner club and parking is exactly the same one that's in front of his house, too. There are many people who have white Hondas. In fact, there are 22,000 people who have white Hondas in Idaho, Moscow. Just Idaho, Moscow. We haven't even gone to the nearby counties like Washington, Pullman. Could Brian Koberger allegedly have been picked up and pointed out because he was different from the others? Because he didn't engage in the others? We've heard of Emma Bailey, Demetrius, and BK at one party. Could they have got to know each other from there and planned it? Or could they have decided to frame Koberger from there? Is that possible? Anything is possible. The prosecution needs to turn over the 3 unidentified male DNAs so we can find out who the other 3 people were in that house. Another red flag, it's my speculation, I have of Jack D, is whoever, I've said from day one, whoever did this horrific quadruple crimes knew Murphy. They knew the dog, period. The reason I say that, all the dog owners, y'all can tell me. Can a stranger just come and keep your dog quiet? I don't think so. I have a cat and I know my cat knows our family members. He wouldn't have listened to other people. He doesn't get wild and all, but he just go away from you. And he wouldn't listen to you. He would have hidden or ran away if a stranger came to the house. That's what I believe, because that's a cat's personality. But a dog, I have friends who have dogs, although I don't have dogs. And I can see how dogs behave, who they're comfortable near, who they take orders from. A dog takes orders from his master. Or the female who owns the dog. So it could have been someone who knew Murphy. And I don't mean just knew Murphy well. Who else could have known Murphy? Dylan? Bethany Funk? Adam? We saw Adam playing and looking after Murphy. Hunter Johnson? Because we've seen him in all the body cams. He's the legend of body cams, so we in the house. So he knows Murphy too. Who else can we think of? I'm sure Emma Bailey knows Murphy because we've seen her in the house. Many of the students who've been into that house know Murphy, but I believe John Showalter should know Murphy. Because strangely enough, John Showalter, it wasn't Maddie, and the 2 surviving roommates, Bethany Funk and Dylan, have all gone to the same school in high school in Boise, Idaho. They're from the same county. And so is Jack D. He's been living there for a period of time, if he still doesn't live there. So these are people who've known each other before Idaho, Moscow. The 3 unidentified emails and the genealogical DNA that is supposed to be a lead. It's not supposed to be a way of using it for the court's order. It's supposed to be a lead, a direction that it leads you to. It's not 99.9% sure like they say. Because we've heard and I've read of cases going wrong in such things. Even the expert in the genealogical test has said, and he's been an expert from 1984. He said that it's not one of the most reliable DNAs to use, and they used it only from one swab of Brian Koberger. Then you have Mr. Enan Harsh. That is the one I wanted to mention last. Talking so much rubbish, nonsense, smack, that it is just, it's sad that a horrific crime has happened. But if the horrific crime didn't happen, and if I just listened to Enan Harsh, I would have just been sitting and laughing. I would have been thinking, this guy needs a psychiatrist evaluation, he needs therapy, or he needs prison. It's one of the three. Either he's just searching for clouds, or he's an attention seeker or narcissistic. We've seen a lot of symptoms of antisocial behavior. He's been having felonies since he was young. But now I understand why Ann Taylor subpoenaed him. Just listen to what he's speaking about. To unresolved crimes especially. He showed a lot of anxiety. He was very anxious. He kept on playing with his hair, rubbing his head, rubbing his neck. Isn't that strange? Those are all triggers, it looks like, of anxiety. He didn't look like he was telling a lot of the truth. Either he was lying in hidden truth crime, his interview, or he was lying in unresolved crime, or he was lying in both. Things, I'll tell you, let me point out things that I actually, let's be fair, believe him for. I believe that he saw a black car, luxury club. I'm starting to change my mind about that and actually believe that he saw it. Because it was a quiet night, everything was quiet. He lives in the neighborhood. He would see something that doesn't belong in the neighborhood. Yes, I believe that. That he said it was an awfully quiet night, I've heard many other people saying that. So, he's not lied about that. But I'll tell you where he is lying. Where he is lying, or I wouldn't say lying, but yeah, kind of lying, doesn't make sense, is the rest. Or I wouldn't say lying. I would say what doesn't make sense, what is odd, what is a red flag, serious red flags, is when he said that he said if somebody was going to do the crime, they would have most likely waited for the place to become dark. Then they would have gone from the backyard, hid themselves, like stayed there, and then they would have gone through the sliding door. That I found to be a red flag. Because that's exactly what happened. The person came from the sliding door. Another thing that was a serious major red flag is when he said, it's strange that time has gone and they still haven't found any suspects. He said, it's because there wasn't any evidence found in the crime scene. How would he know that? He took that interview, I guess, before Brian Koberger was found or charged with this murder. How would he know that? I find that to be a red flag. And unresolved crimes, notice that. I believe there's many things that he should have pulled in on hush about, but I don't know. Maybe he was thinking, like, since everybody's been attacking him, take it slow, which is right. But there were many important questions that I would have asked him. Example, I would have said, you haven't been. That was the only question that you asked him. How would you know? Because the results of the crime scene hasn't come up. So Inan Harsh knew already that that there was no evidence or little evidence in the crime scene. How would he know that? That wasn't it. So he said, yeah, that's what, because they still haven't arrested anyone. How does he know there wasn't evidence there? Then another red flag that he clearly gave is he said that at 3 a.m., he said if anyone would have gone to the residence to do this, they wouldn't have gone around 3 a.m. because that's when some people walk their dogs. Wonder if Kaylee was walking her dog that night. I thought I heard about something like that in the beginning. I'm not sure. Somebody left a comment saying that Kaylee was walking her dog, allegedly. So this man knows too much. And then I found it strange that he spoke about the hijacker. He said, not hijacker, sorry, hitchhiker. He said that a couple of people stopped him, a girl and a boy. They were hitchhiking. This was in COVID period. And this was actually, no, he said this was in early November. Didn't he say that? Yeah, 1st November or something. He said early November. So this was 2 weeks before the crimes. He said he drove the people back to Idaho, Moscow, and the guy sitting behind kept on asking him, are you going to kill us? Are you going to unharm us? And if you do that, many people know where we exactly are. And he didn't ask him once. He asked him many times, according to Inan. And then Inan's answer is, why would I do that? Why would I stab y'all? Isn't that strange? He didn't say, why would I shoot y'all? Or how? He actually told them, why would I use this weapon to unharm you?